So, Qatar is probably the story we want to start with. I hit this a little bit yesterday, but we were on the tail end of the show when this story effectively came out. Israel, lured by Donald Trump, and yes, I'm going to say lured, bombed Doha, Qatar, with the goal of trying to murder the Hamas leadership. Now, apparently, several people were killed. They did not necessarily get everybody, but of course, this is causing an international scandal, to put it mildly, which on some level kind of mystifies me. Israel has been murdering people in mass for the last 2 years. And now, all of a sudden, people are shocked that a country that has been working and operating with impunity has decided to continue to operate with impunity and attack Doha. That's weird to me. The prime minister comes out, gives the speech effectively saying all options are on the table. We reserve the right to attack. Trump is saying that they gave them a warning in advance. The prime minister is saying that is not the case, that he did not get a warning in advance, that he was told after the fact when it was effectively too late. Either way, it's amazing to me that these quisling governments, and by the way, flexing the military prowess after they got attacked. Now, if Trump is right, which who knows, right? You effectively got hit by Israel, and you're flexing your muscles after the fact you got hit by Israel. And I can't necessarily tell whether this is purely for the public consumption of Qatar, or meaning, because you can imagine there are going to be a lot of angry people that their sovereignty has effectively been fundamentally, irreparably violated. Now, the catch becomes, what do you do about it? Donald Trump apparently patted him on the head, say, hey, don't worry about this. It won't happen again. It won't happen again. And the only thing you have to believe is the habitual liar that effectively lured Hamas there to discuss the deal that Donald Trump had on the table and then tried to murder that same Hamas. I am using the term lured. So Axios is reporting that Donald Trump is very upset. He's fuming. He's fuming about Israel bombing Hamas in Qatar. Doesn't this have kind of this energy of Joe Biden is very angry that Israel went into Rafah? Joe Biden is working tirelessly with all of these other things that are taking place. It's nonsense. They were there to review a deal, an agreement that Donald Trump put on the table. This is simultaneously with Donald Trump screaming that there's going to be all hell to pay if that deal is not necessarily accepted. So you create pressure, you send them to negotiate or to look at the deal that you go through, and then Israel all of a sudden bombs that particular location. I don't think it's coincidence. If you look back at Soleimani, he was also going for a peace negotiation when Trump murdered him. If you look at what took place with Israel, where they were going for peace negotiations, when Israel tried a decapitation strike that the United States obviously knew about, because you could see Donald Trump tweets immediately after, up until the point where it became clear that Israel was getting his clock cleaned. This is Trump's MO. Habitual liars lie. Flat fact. It's as real as gravity at this point. So yes, when I look at the situation and I say Trump put a deal on the table, they go to negotiate the deal, and all of a sudden you have a strike that effectively tries to murder everybody that's there. There's some rumor, that I'll call it, that Turkey gave a heads up at the last minute, which allowed some of them to effectively save their lives. I don't know if that's true or not. The prime minister of Qatar seems to be very upset, whether that's for public consumption or otherwise, who knows? It is fascinating to me that he is this upset, and I'm going to explain why. This is, let me see, do I have a video of the attack itself? I think I have a video of the attack itself also, if you give me a moment. But this is the prime minister, very angry, humiliated. Apparently, he believed he was different than Syria, Iran, Gaza, Lebanon. Apparently, he thought he was different. I don't know why. You have two racist governments. Why do you think these racist governments are going to see you Arab Muslim any different than they see the other Arab Muslims that they have been murdering, starving, raping, imprisoning for the last several years. Why? I don't know. This is him.
Willing.
A speech where he is pointing out that options are on the table and that the other governments should get involved in order to push back on Israel's behavior.
The state of Qatar is committed to act in a decisive way with anything that would target its territories, and will reserve the right to retaliate, and will take all the needed measures to retaliate. And under the directives of His Highness the Emir, the security of the citizens and the residents is our top priority. And based on that, as of tomorrow, God willing, we will review all the policies and the directives in order to deter such actions and measures in the future, so that it cannot happen again. And this will be also the committee will be headed by State Minister Mohammed Al Khalifi, who will take all the needed measures in order to retaliate and to respond to this attack, against this attack. The Israeli attack that took place today in the state of Qatar, we can only call it as a state terrorism that is being exerted by someone like Netanyahu, given his attempts and his policies as he tries to threaten the regional security. This is only a clear message to the whole region, and this message says that there is one player, and there's also a disrespect to all the policies and also a violation to the sovereignty of all the countries and the states. Netanyahu said himself that he will reshape the Middle East. Does he mean that he's also going to reshape the Gulf region? I think that we have reached a decisive moment. There should be a retaliation from the whole region.
Right there, right there, right there. There should be retaliation for the whole region. Now, when I heard that, I thought to myself, well, that's special. That's pretty amazing, right? Put this in context. The Gulf states have watched Israel commit mass murder. They have watched Israel starve, rape, kill. They have watched Israel take shots for fun at starving human beings, ghostly skeletal human beings, while they laughed and joked and took pop shots at various people. They laughed as they were shooting kids in the genitals intentionally. This is what they were effectively doing for fun. They were murdering, quote unquote, dangerous babies. They were bombing tents. They were doing all of this stuff. And they were doing this stuff for 3 years while the Gulf states watched. 2 years. And the Gulf states watched. Didn't break relationships. They kept their relationships. Hell, they were even going to sign the Abraham Accords. They watched as Syria, and paid for, by the way, as Syria was overthrown. And as a head chopper, went about ethnically cleansing other Muslims and Christians, Alawites, etc., in Syria. They watched. They didn't have much to say about it. They watched. They watched as Lebanon was bombed and people killed, and Lebanon was occupied and invaded. They watched all of this stuff. They watched as Iran was hit. Didn't necessarily have much to say about that either. But now, this is an issue for the region, and we should respond accordingly. That's pretty amazing. So you can watch a genocide. You can watch all of these other people get murdered. You can watch Arab Muslims get slaughtered. And you can do so for years while also maintaining a relationship with Israel and tightening that relationship. But now that your country was bombed because you thought that you were somehow special, you thought you were somehow unique, as opposed to two racist, one racist prime minister, one racist president, looking at you like they look at every other Arab, expendable. Why did you think you were different? Why? And what is this unity now that you've apparently come to where you believe that all of the other states should get involved. None of you got involved when all of these other people were being murdered. What has transpired now where you now all of a sudden Muslims should rise up and fight Netanyahu? That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Donald Trump pat him on the head. It's okay. Just calm down. Just calm down. Don't overstress it. It won't happen again. It's okay. I'm fascinated by that speech. I really am. It's almost astonishing. How do you make a speech like that as you've watched all of these other people get killed and slaughtered in your region while working with the genocidal regime that was effectively doing it, or at the very least didn't necessarily take a hard stance against the genocidal regime that was doing it? Sure, they would write a strongly worded letter, and sure, they would go out, give a speech, and then get back in their limo and eat their bonbons, but nothing real, nothing tangible. And yes, I'm saying this as a citizen of the country that is effectively backing this deranged sociopathy with my tax dollars. So I do get it. But whether my country is doing it or not is secondary to the point that their countries is also allowing it. It's amazing to me that all of a sudden now you want to universalize the issue when up to this point, each one has been specific and you had nothing to do with it, using this realist logic of, my name is Bennett, I ain't in it. I give a strongly worded letter, I'll condemn it, but I'm not necessarily going to do anything to push back on it. And now, when it's become clear that your sovereignty was never a given, that your sovereignty has been ruthlessly violated, now you take issue. That's amazing. That's amazing. Whether they were given a heads up in the way that Trump says, or whether it was told too late, I don't know. The truth of the matter is, obviously, U.S. air defense didn't do anything about the attack. They weren't protected in any particular way. And apparently, their own air defense, or whatever defenses that they have at their disposal, whatever weapons that were used, Israel was able to effectively get in without triggering any of those things. It has even crossed my mind that they might have been in on it. I mean, they would have the exact same reaction if they were effectively in on it, right? So who knows? I don't necessarily know. I'm just pointing out that this kind of flexing your military might after you've been violated. And if indeed this was a situation where you were effectively told in advance, that makes it even worse. It's like, you got cucked, then claiming you didn't when everybody watched the video on OnlyFans. How are you making this case? How are you making this argument? I understand the rage. You should have rage. I understand, the animosity, the anger, the humiliation. I get all that. And I would imagine that your population is also very angry, in which case you need to emote this in order to curb some of the anger from the population itself. But it's a bit rich that you've watched all of these people get slaughtered for years. You had no concerns. And now all of a sudden that you got hit, you want to bring in everybody else to your cause. This was the hit that took place right here. This was the hit that took place in Doha. This, and this.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Sana hindi pumani yung kotse. Oh my God.
Now, the world, or at the very least the world according to Al Jazeera, is freaking out over this, outraged over this. And again, I'm a bit bewildered as to why. We as a world, supported by the US, fully supported by the US, with the rest of the world effectively being genocide enablers also because they've continued support for Israel and kept their relationship and trade relationships and deals and everything else, but fully supported by the US, fully supported by Europe wholeheartedly. We have watched them go from one country to the next, bombing and killing. We've watched them kill women and children with impunity. We've watched them invade other countries with impunity. They're occupying Syria and parts of Lebanon right now as we speak. We have let them commit a genocide with complete and utter impunity. Why do we believe that that impunity would stop there? And is it possible that when you can commit actions in the way that you've committed actions that are so ghastly and horrific without any kind of pushback, within any kind of consequence, real world consequence, that maybe you feel that there are no limits? And if you indeed feel that there are no limits, what does it matter if you bomb Qatar? Especially if Qatar doesn't do anything about it. If you don't do anything about it, you've set a precedent that your sovereignty is up to the whims of foreign actors. The US being one, Israel being the other. Obviously, the US greenlit this attack. I don't believe for a moment that the United States or that Israel did this attack without hitting or giving a heads up to the United States and the US saying, yay. I've heard some commentary that makes the point that this attack was more about Qatar and effectively threatening Qatar to get them to sign on to the Abraham Accords. I don't know. There could be multiple reasons that the attack took place. It could be to show Hamas the utter futility of their plight, effectively saying, look, we don't have to be legitimate negotiators with you. We can lie. We can try to kill your people. And as such, you realize the type of people that we are. So yeah, you need to make any kind of deal that we effectively offer you. It could also be for Qatar as a threat of saying your sovereignty is up for grabs. And if your sovereignty is indeed up for grabs, maybe you should sign on to the Abraham Accords and stop complaining about the taking and the theft of the West Bank. It could be that. It could be both, right? All things being equal, though, let's be very clear. This was most likely Donald Trump luring the group into a trap, just like he did with Iran, just like he did with Soleimani. This seems to be, at this point, Donald Trump's MO. So yeah, there's that. It's just fascinating. That's all. We'll see how this progresses. We'll see what happens. There have been strongly worded letters that I'm pretty sure Israel is going to be, shaking in their boots by. Saudi Arabia apparently said, well, you have our support. Again, I don't know what that means in real terms. Unless there's a muscular action pushing back on this, then let's be very clear, the sovereignty is up for grabs. Also, let's be very clear that Israel wanted Qatar to feed that wolf in the way that Joe Scarborough put it, meaning using Qatar in order to support Hamas. So it's a bit rich now that they turn around and effectively attack them. One last point on this. On an interview, Brett Baer, listen to what the representative of Israel had to say. For all of Trump's talks about, hey, shh, it's okay. Just let it happen. Just let it happen. It's like a rapist. It's like they're rubbing your hair. It's like, shh, just let it happen. Listen to this.
Hamas terrorists are on notice. They are going to be eliminated.
Mr. Ambassador, understand that and the history. Obviously, Israel is under attack constantly. In this case, Qatar officials and
that's like telling the Nazis, it's like, hey, I know the Nazis are under attack constantly as you committed Holocaust. Okay, Brett.
And Hamas leadership is saying that you did not get the targets you were seeking. They are obviously condemning this attack as attacking inside an allied country to the U.S. The U.S. here at the White House expressing concern that it did not advance the goals of the U.S. or Israel. And you have the Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia, with very pointed statements in condemnation. So did you get the targets you were seeking?
If we didn't get them this time, we'll get them the next time.
We didn't get them this time. We'll get them the next time. Pursuant to that, Donald Trump has pointed out that he wants Qatar to continue negotiations with Hamas. I shit you not. He said, hey, I know you have feelings about this, but I would prefer that you continue your negotiations. That's amazing. Life in times of vassal. Life in times of a vassal. If you trust the United States, you're an idiot. If you think that you're a Muslim country and that the United States is going to look at you as an equal, you're an idiot. If you believe anything that is coming out their mouth in regards to negotiations, you are an idiot. There is track record after track record after track record of radical mendacity in the way that the U.S. has operated with any country that it has an advantage over. Credibility doesn't quite seem to matter. In their minds, we're a superpower. We don't need to have credibility. You're going to have to work with us either way. It is going to be super interesting to see what Qatar does in this situation. Is it just going to be a pointed, strongly worded statement, breathing fire and brimstone, begging for other people to help you out? I would wager that those countries are realists, just like every other country is a realist. And the realist countries look at Gaza and they say, hey, that's a shame, but we don't want to get involved. And I would wager to you in the same way that the Gulf states looked at their Muslim brothers being murdered, raped, tortured, killed, starved. And they said, that's a shame. We don't want to get involved. Is anybody really going to come to Qatar's defense beyond a strongly worded letter? That is going to be super interesting to see. Super